Hello and welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. I'm your host, Mark Philpott, and today I have another great guest lined up for you. This is the latest in a series of chats I'm having with travel bloggers from across the world. Today's guest calls herself a travel writer, foodie, photographer, super planner and useful human. She's a UK blog finalist as well as being a New Zealander who's currently based in France. It's a very warm welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show to Hannah Henderson. So it's a very warm welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show to Hannah Henderson. Hannah, bonjour and kia ora. Welcome to the show.
Bonjour.
How are you today?
Haven't heard kia ora in a while.
Haven't heard kia ora in a while. Well,
I'm going to sound really Kiwi talking to you, I think.
well, I hope my accent brings out the best in yours.
Oh, for sure.
Let's see. So how are you today, all right?
I am.
Now tell us, where
I've only
are
been
you?
up an hour.
You've only been up an hour. Sorry about that. I didn't want to get you out of bed too early. What beautiful part of the world are you in today talking to us from?
I'm in the beautiful region of the Vienne in France today.
That is a
where
beautiful
we have
area.
a wee house. So it's gorgeous. Most of the time it's raining today though. So
I want to say one thing about what you just said. A wee house in France is better than no house in France. I can tell you that.
Definitely. And we like the small house because we don't have to vacuum quite so much.
Oh, that's
so.
Great strategy. I like that. Now, are you a regular podcast guest? Have you done a lot of podcasts before?
I've never been a podcast guest, so this is exciting.
First time.
I am a podcast virgin.
Oh, wow. I've had so many over the last few weeks. It's been really exciting. So you're another one. That's great. So look, I promise to go soft and gentle on you and not spring too many surprises, okay? But I do want to know at the end of it whether or not you enjoyed it, so you can tell me before we go off air whether you actually had some fun today, okay?
Oh, for sure.
Now, let's get into it. So the first thing I ask our guests to do is to actually dedicate the show to someone special in your life. So who would you like to dedicate the show to today?
Well, given you probably hear the dog in the background, we'll go with my dog and my husband.
Dog and husband, okay. That's a first for me. I've never had the dog and husband get
they're the
mentioned.
two boys in my life, so I have to give them credit where it's due.
Right. Okay. So, and your husband's name is?
My husband Roy.
Roy.
He is a musician.
Yep. So is the dog.
And the dog is apparently a musician too.
What's the dog's name?
His name is Moose.
Moose. Okay, so this show is dedicated to Roy and Moose.
Roy and Moose, yeah.
And I'm sure in years to come they will both sit down and listen back to it and get as much joy as they have out of listening to it. You are a fellow Kiwi. How long have you been away from New Zealand?
I have. I left in 2003, and I didn't expect to be away this long, but life gets you. life takes you in lots of directions, and I was expecting to do 2 years away, and I put all my worldly belongings in my grandmother's basement.
Yep.
And then never came back. So
I hope she's charging you rent to store them.
She made me clear it out the last time I was there and get rid of everything. So I think she realised before I did that I wasn't coming back.
Right. What do you miss the most about New Zealand?
My family. I've still got half of the family there. The other half live in Canada. And weird stuff, or like being close to the beach because you're never very far from the beach anywhere. And Whittaker's chocolate.
Oh yes. I was just thinking about that question. I was going to ask you what you're missing today, and I thought, oh, what is it that I miss the most about New Zealand? And I came down to chocolate fish and sausage rolls. Nice.
That's a good one. Now you've made me want to sausage roll, actually. I can't believe how Kiwi I sound all of a sudden. It's horrendous.
Well, you should be proud of it. I am.
I don't miss the accent, I've got to say.
You don't? Okay. Well, we can do it in French if you want. Do you want to have this conversation in French?
Non, merci. No.
Okay. Now, we're going to have a long chat about Hannah Henderson's lifestyle travel online blog, and who knows, we might even chat about espresso martinis and winning Eurostar tickets. What do you think about that?
That sounds good.
And I'm also fascinated by this claim to fame of being a useful human being. I've never seen that anywhere before, so I'd really want to dig into that sometime.
Sure.
Do you have any plans to go back and live in New Zealand?
I kind of have a dream that one day I'd like to spend sort of 3 months of the year there. Although I can't afford real estate nowadays, but I would like to spend more time there in the future. But honestly, it's hard to get there. It's a long way away and it's expensive. So I don't know whether that will ever happen. But I do have this sort of, that idealistic sort of part of, well, I have a very idealistic part of my brain that keeps me dreaming. And that's one of my dreams, is to spend every summer in New Zealand and never have a winter.
And you were suggesting that might be 3 months in duration. I reckon it's probably about 3 weeks.
Well, I think if I could spend December, January and February in New Zealand, that would get me away from the coldest area, the coldest time in France where we are. So, and then 3 months traveling as well, and then 6 months in France. That's my ideal situation. If the universe is listening and would like to fund that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, when I distribute the podcast, I'll copy in the universe.
The universe.
So that they do have to listen to it. Yeah.
Thank you. So kind.
Now, this week I've been doing a series of episodes and talking to travel bloggers all over the world about their journey in the world of travel blogging, because I've had a lot of requests from my listeners to find out about the inside story on travel blogging, and if it's all cracked up, what it's cracked up to be. Is it all that good and all the rest of it? So I thought, right, I'm gonna invite a number of travel bloggers to come on the show, and I'm going to pump them full of questions and see whether or not we can get to the bottom of this truth or dare about travel blogging.
Cool. Okay.
So let's see how we go on that. We are going to talk about your lifestyle travel blog, but first of all, when did you leave New Zealand in 2003? Was that the first time you left New Zealand, or had you been out of the country before?
Oh yes, I was born out of the country actually. I was born in London.
Okay.
Raised in New Zealand and then left again at 19. Did what the New Zealanders call their big OE, their big overseas experience, and went to London, Wales, Ireland, Paris and Naples, Italy, and I did some nannying in Naples, and then came back to New Zealand, and I think that was probably when I realised that I wanted to see more of the world than I could from New Zealand. So and whilst I had a burgeoning business and was very happy in New Zealand, you can't get out of it very easily unless you have a lot of money. So that's when I started thinking about resettling over the other side of the world and to see more.
So when you first started traveling from New Zealand, what was it like for you emotionally to start seeing other cultures? And as you say, the tyranny of distance is something we deal with down under, and once you get up into Europe in particular, it's just a total, I guess, submergence, isn't it, in all these different cultures. How did you kind of find that the first time that you went out of New Zealand?
I mean, it was scary in that it was, that first trip is, daunting, going to the airport and saying goodbye to your parents. I was 19 and more than ready to do it. But I think the thing that struck me was how easy, once I was in London, how easy I could get around and how much there was to see within such a small striking distance. And I think I got quite addicted to it just in that summer while I was traveling. So I think the more you see, the more you realize there is to see, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So, were you already writing at that stage? Were you journalizing your trips and things you were doing way back then?
Yeah, well, that's probably when I started what was originally my travel blog, which was just massive big emails. Back in '99, you didn't have the same equipment you have now, and so you I would write back. I'd go to an internet cafe wherever I was, and I would buy an hour or two of time. And I would write these massive big emails explaining what I'd been doing and telling a story. And I actually still have them.
Wow.
And I still refer back to them if I need to know any information.
Fantastic. So you've been at this a long time then. You're a pioneer.
In various iterations,
You're a pioneer in this space. That's fantastic. I'm always interested to know how everybody kind of falls into it. And some people have picked it up later on in their travel journeys, but some, not many like you, have actually done it from day one. So hats off to you for doing that. When did things start to go into the HH lifestyle travel blog area? When did that kind of kick off?
That was much later. So I had various blogging sites over the years. And it wasn't until 2016 that my husband and I decided that we were going to make the leap and disappear out of our corporate lifestyles in Edinburgh. And we bought a house here in France and decided that we would technically, we'd retire from the corporate lifestyle. My husband's older than me, so he is actually retired.
Okay.
And I would do blogging full time. And that's when I moved on to the new platform and rebranded, and have spent the last couple of years just doing it in a different way than I used to. I used to just tell stories for me because I wanted a record of where I'd been. And it's a real shift between that and blogging for other people.
Yeah, of course. What were you doing in the corporate world?
I was an executive assistant at a bank.
Oh, okay.
Not my life stream, but I really enjoyed it because that is where my useful human moniker comes in. Because I was the Girl Friday, or I could do anything kind of assistant, and yeah, so it was not what I had planned when I thought about my life, but it paid really well, so I was happy to do it.
Whoever ends up doing what they thought they were doing as a 12-year-old is probably a liar anyway. Yeah. So.
Do you know I was going to be a zoologist in Africa?
Okay.
Yeah.
Had one on the show
then
yesterday.
I failed chemistry. Yeah.
There we go. You
failed. You're lucky. I wanted to be one.
So, extracting yourself out of the corporate world, how was that from I'm really fascinated by this because I've done it myself, and I'm interested to talk to other people that have done it in terms of changing that identity to become, a full-time blogger from being a corporate person. How was that for you?
Oh, it's still an ongoing journey, to be honest. Because it's only been we whilst our plans started happening in 2016, we didn't actually leave until 2018.
Oh,
and,
okay.
2018 happened, and we left, and we did a lot of traveling at that point. We'd sort of saved up and done a lot of traveling, and that gave me a false impression, really, of it being all a holiday and it all being wonderful, and actually extricating yourself from a routine that entrenched. I'd been working in banks and insurance and things for 15 years, and coming away and not having any routine. It was actually, and it still some days is really difficult to make yourself have a routine to get the work done that you need to. So it's an ongoing process, and it's not all easy and fun, and you're not sitting on a tropical island with your laptop all the time. I think that's a false narrative.
Yeah, I think that's, having spoken to the other guests this week, that's coming across loud and clear. And in fact, some of them have admitted to actually working probably harder than they did in the corporate world.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
There's so many different dimensions to doing this. And it's, as we'll get into it shortly, it's not just about the writing, it's about all the other peripheral activities that you have to do to keep this whole machine moving forward, right?
Exactly. You are the tech person, you are the you're the content writer, which is what I like doing, and then you're
Mm.
pitching for jobs, you're uh, scheduling stuff, you're making a routine for yourself, it's not, you're doing processing of photos and all of that jazz, and it's not at all just in traveling for the fun of it.
I guess after you've just said all that, it's now obvious why one becomes a useful human being after taking all that sort of stuff on.
Indeed.
Mind you, you do have a certificate in tourism, a certificate in art and design, a BA in art history, and masters in museum studies. So, do you actually ever sleep?
I love studying. I think I just want to study for the rest of my life. I'd give up blogging to do my PhD, to be honest.
Mm, mm.
I think I was just born to be an academic. But I then again, blogging does allow me a lot of time for learning, because you sure do have to learn a lot to run one for yourself. So I suppose that sates that appetite a little bit.
So, for people listening today and we're going out to about 83 different countries across the world.
Oh,
So,
wow.
for people who are listening and wanting to get into that travel blogging space for the first time, whilst a lot of these things are still pretty fresh in your memory in terms of how you started off, what are some of the things that you would have done a little bit differently when you started? What shortcuts would you have taken that you now know about that you didn't know about then?
Um, if it's going to be your business, I would, and a lot of people are now doing this, is they're starting it with that in mind. And I didn't. I started it because I liked writing. And so if all the advice that I give to people these days is start it as a business, learn the technical side of it, learn SEO, which is search engine optimization. If you don't have that, you will be retrofitting your blogs till the end of time, which is unfortunately what I've had to do.
Mm.
Start out with that business model in mind. Know what your income streams are going to be, or that you'd like them to be. Are you going to have affiliate sales? Are you going to have ads? Are you going to do freelance content creation? What is it that you want to make money from? And do all that stuff first, because I've come around the long way.
Mm.
And yeah, it's taken
I'm
me a lot longer than it should have.
I'm really pleased that you said that, because I've spoken again to these previous people and other people off the record, and it seems to me that many people start off this travel blogging as a bit of a side hustle, and
Yeah,
then whether the community grows rather quickly, they get the adrenaline flowing and they think, hang on, I can turn this into a business. The difficult thing about that is what you're alluding to now, is that when you choose your platforms in particular and the technology behind that, if you haven't done it properly from the start, as you've just mentioned, there's a lot of backtracking. So
yeah,
that's a really critical piece of advice for anybody that wants to start off a travel blog in a more serious fashion, let's say. So be more business minded. Okay, that's a good one.
yeah.
What else would you suggest? And I'm
Um,
thinking around the social media side of things. Are there any things there that you've kind of learnt so much about that you say, oh, I'd never go down that path again with social media in a particular way? Or
um, Social media is a strange one, because Instagram changes its algorithms every 5 minutes, so you're left in the dust with that. I think one thing is, don't ever rely on one social channel. Have
mm,
them all. Have your favorite. Twitter's my favorite by a long shot.
mm.
Um, because I actually enjoy using it. It's not something I have to do. I enjoy it.
Now let's chat on that. Let's chat about that, because you've got over 21,000 followers on Twitter,
Yeah.
and you've only been doing it for a couple of years. So what's the secret there? How have you built up that community on Twitter?
Engage, engage, engage. Just chat to
Mm,
people all day, every day, as much as you can. Have quality content that you post. Retweet quality content.
mm,
Um, Talk to people. It's not just it is a very social um, channel. I would suggest that you keep the followers that you follow to only the people that you want to see. And the reason I say this is because if you clutter your feed with just you're following everyone that's following you, you end up not being able to see the quality content within that. And so the way I can retweet quality things is by surrounding myself with other quality travel niche people. And I think people get blinded because it is quite an overwhelming channel to get your head around sometimes. And certainly with, I think I follow 6 or so thousand people. So with 6,000 people in my feed, that's quite a lot of information being thrown at you. So it's really about understanding what your audience wants, and my audience wants travel, so that's all I ever repost. And you have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, you're never going to be able to be authentic or have those engagements with people, that because I'm really just passionate about travel. So when I'm on Twitter, I'm speaking passionately, and I think people see that. So at least I hope they do.
Has that 21,000 followers, has that been something that's gone up in a fairly steady trajectory, or did you have a huge bump and spike at some stage?
I remember I started off, I was going to the 2017 TBEX in Ireland, in Killarney in October 2017, and I had, before that, I'd been working around the sort of 486 followers sticks in my head. I don't know why. And I think I'd got up to about 1,400 before the conference, working really hard by joining travel Twitter chats, following as many, bigger followers as I could, talking to lots of people, and really making my feed exciting. And actually, once I got into the groove of that, that's how it started increasing naturally. And it's been on a steady trajectory since then, because I still love travel chats, and it doesn't matter how many followers I get. I still just want to chat to people. So that's the defining feature, I think. Once I put my mind to it, to actually engage on the platform, is when my followers started going up. But there's no magic trick. People ask me a lot, how did you get that many followers? And all I can say is that I have engaged with people, but there's no magic trick to it. I think once you have 5,000 or more, you naturally get more, because people see that you must have good content to get to 5,000 or something like that. But there's no shortcuts when it comes to social. You have to work hard and build it.
In the podcast world, there's a trend that's starting in terms of outsourcing a lot of the different activities to make a successful podcast show, such as getting somebody else to do the editing of the show, getting someone else to look after the social media side of things. Is that happening in the travel blog world?
Oh yeah, there's I don't do it. In fact, I do it for other people sometimes. So that you can run travel chats for people. You can people have Instagram management and Twitter management and things.
So that's a paid gig, is it?
That it can be. It really it depends. It's that weird world of, is this a service? And yes, it is. And will people pay you for it? And so I have a lot of friends actually who do social media management as their whole job.
Right.
That's all they do. They literally just have however many accounts that they can get or can manage. And in the morning they go in and post, and in the afternoon they go in and reply to comments, and that's all they do. It's not something that I do a lot of, but I do help other people get themselves started. So in a way I'm doing it. But
okay. Do you have a love-hate relationship with social media?
I have a love relationship with Twitter. A love, not hate, love, like relationship with Facebook. And I definitely have just a hate relationship with Instagram.
That's coming across very strong in the last few days. That
as
message,
a photographer, though, I should like it, right? Like, images were my bread and butter when I was younger, and it should be the platform for me, but I really don't like it. I don't like how shallow it is. I don't like how difficult it is to get anywhere. Doesn't matter what you do.
I have been learning about social media in lots of different ways. And one of the things that I look at is these influencers who are typically young girls from around the world who post stuff about fashion and all other things. And they've got millions of followers on Instagram. And I'm just thinking, on the flip side, when I hear comments like yours that Instagram is just controlling, it's not allowed, the algorithms are not allowing communities to be built. How are they doing it? Why are they being so successful with it?
I think they probably got on the bandwagon before things started to change. I think if you got in early enough, it was a beast that had not a lot of rules, and it was new and it was exciting. And I think it sort of allowed for a whole new wave of people that wouldn't usually have a job to suddenly have this job. However, and I don't knock them. Wow, good on them for having that success. I was late to the game. However, what I don't believe that the follower numbers is actually the most important part of any social channel. I think the engagement stats are more important. And so if you have 5 million followers, but your engagement is 0.002, then percent, then I don't think you should be getting the work that you probably are. And I think slowly the travel media and the travel the tourism boards and things are slowly coming around to that, because of late when I talk to them, they're not asking, oh, you must have 10 or 20,000 on Instagram. Some of them are, and I can't give them that. But some of them have come around to thinking, well, can you show me your engagement stats instead? And I think that's a more relevant metric.
Yeah, I agree. So how's your use of social media changed over the last 12 months? Is it a fact that you're putting all your energy into Twitter and not focusing so much on Instagram?
I never really focused on Instagram. I have it because people expect me to have it. It doesn't bring me any traffic. It might bring me work occasionally if I got more followers, because as I said, some people still ask for a minimum of 10,000 followers for travel writing stuff. But I think I've always gone to where I'm enjoying it, because I'm determined, whilst this might be what I do, I don't want to not enjoy what I do. I don't want travel to be something that happens as an afterthought after this business. So I want that's not very eloquent, but I want to travel first, do social later. And I am on Twitter all the time because I like Twitter. So I think for me, the focus is on my travel blog and on SEO and getting traffic to my website. So, my social channels are only a small percentage of that traffic. So you have to think, where are you wanting to have your business, and focus on that, because if social isn't contributing to your business, then I wouldn't fuss too much over it.
So people listening today who are going to run now to the Hannah Henderson lifestyle travel site, what can they expect to find when they get there?
Lots of really useful guides on places to go. I love.
How do you select the places that you go to?
I select them because I want to go there. It has nothing to do with my blog. And I think that's a really important step. The way I choose what to write and what to put on my blog is by if I've been to a place and I can find a keyword and I can find something that people are missing on the internet. Say they don't have a 4-day guide to Yellowstone, then I'm going to write it. So I look for gaps in using the places I've already been. And so, I've just written this massive big 4-day guide to Yellowstone because I didn't see a lot of them on the internet. So, and whilst I might research what I can write about before I visit a place, so that I can be more focused while I'm there, I definitely don't. I try not to travel for content unless it's other people's content. So I might be asked to write content for a tourism board or something like that, and I'll go to a place for that purpose. But when it comes to my own travel, I really want to do it because I love traveling, and I never want to lose that in amongst this blogging malarkey.
How long do you normally take to determine when you're going to go next? Is it kind of are you an impulsive traveller? Do you kind of look at something and go, right, I want to go there and I'm off? Or do you have a good plan in advance on where you're going to go?
I must admit to being an Uber planner. I love the planning phase. I have spreadsheets for everything. In the last year, we've done 3 big US road trips, which were all planned many years ago. And that this new living arrangement allowed us to do. And I must have been planning those for the last, in my head and in spreadsheets for the last 10 years, on where I wanted to go. And then as the time gets closer when we can actually do it, I'm usually booking flights between 6 months and 12 months ahead. I'm often booking hotels before the flights. I'm often booking the hotels like a year out.
Wow.
Or as soon as they're released.
Okay.
Yeah. I often then gazump my own bookings later on if I get a cheaper deal, but I'm guaranteed to get like the best prices either far in advance or at the last minute. So I always have a backup.
So do you do a lot of last minute bookings as well?
More so now that we're in France and we can just go anywhere, we can just drive places. And when we were in Edinburgh earning money, we did that probably more often, where you can just see a good deal and go for it. But my natural inclination is to still plan. So even if we go last minute, I probably at some point have planned this visit some time in the past. So even if I might book the tickets late, I probably already know about the destination or have researched it. It's very rare for me to go uninformed. And that's not to say that once we're there, we're stringent about what we see and do. But I like to go into it in most situations, well informed, and it means that you can relax and enjoy your holiday if you know what's there to see and how much things are going to cost.
Now, do you remember back to the beginning of the show and I said I was going to throw you a couple of curveballs?
Go for it.
Here's the first one. What's your favourite snack food when you're travelling?
It's a random question.
I've got plenty more where that came from.
Okay. Okay, can I say that it's location dependent?
You can. Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Because in the US, we mostly do road trips. And so, like, jerky is just amazing over there. Chewing on jerky while we're road tripping is a thing.
Beef jerky.
Beef jerky.
Beef jerky, yep. I've had that once before on the show, so you're the second person that said beef jerky.
It's good for road trips.
I've got a whiteboard up here in my studio. I'm actually listing down what everybody
really?
says is their favourite snack food, so I can keep a tally on what. I'm a bit like you. I've got Excel spreadsheets everywhere.
What's winning?
about my guests. So I know all the inner secrets of each one of my guests and what they love eating when they're on the road.
Now you've piqued my interest, and I want to know what other people like.
I bet you do. I tell you now though that chocolate and nuts are coming out on top at the moment.
I find nuts just like annoying in the car because you drop them and they end up in like places, and then you're not allowed them on the airplane much anymore in case of peanut allergies. So I strike peanuts off the record, and I'm not I don't have a big sweet tooth, so chocolate's out for me.
Okay, so it's beef jerky in the United States. What about when you're in Europe?
In Europe, bread-based products. The prevalence of boulangerie in France is a blessing and a curse.
Absolutely.
Crisps, I think, would be my next thing. Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things to do is to go into shops in new countries and see what cool flavors of crisps they have.
Mm. I've
Like
got
they have mustard flavored crisps here in France.
I've got to preface all this is that you are a foodie as well, so there's some kind of
Yes.
camouflage going on here, right? That you can justify some of these comments you're making.
I do tend to pay specific attention to the food in all countries, yes.
Even the snack food. Now, you talked about doing road trips and that across the United States. Tell me how, going back to your first adventure outside of New Zealand, how has the actual art of travel changed since you took that first trip out of New Zealand? Has traveling become easier, or has it become more difficult in some areas?
I'm not going to say difficult. It's changed. I think the because I don't want to put a negative spin on the things that you can do now that you couldn't before. So the ability to book your entire
Mm.
holiday from your phone. If things go wrong, you can book new tickets. I've had that happen where trains have been cancelled, and within 10 minutes, I've got a flight or a different form of transport off of my phone. The ability to take photos off of your phone and not carry around necessarily, I do, but necessarily carry around extra equipment. So whilst it's changed dramatically, I remember having a conversation on Twitter not long ago about how fun it was to remember about old phone cards. I don't know whether you ever had those.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
my mum
absolutely.
gave me one from Telecom New Zealand,
Did
and
it work?
it did. And
Okay,
so
good.
she got charged for every call I made. It was fantastic. And so I
Well, it wasn't until
remember,
you got home.
well, no, she every time I spoke to her sort of weekly, and every time she was like, "Stop using the phone card, Hannah." So uh, having to find phone boxes and use a phone card, it's hilarious to think about that now. But at the same
Mm.
time, there was a sense of adventure and a sense of being cut off from people that could be quite fun, whilst it's not convenient.
Mm.
Back then, I knew I only had that one phone call a week and limited access to emails and things. And that sort of, it made you pay attention and it made you focus on the travel that you were doing. However, on the flip side, you can still do that now just by putting your phone in your pocket
Yeah,
and not posting on Instagram every
yeah.
5 minutes.
If you
You know, so our general thing these days is we experience the stuff in the moment and don't do a lot of posting on social unless it's part of the content that I need to create for other people
Mm.
until the evening. And we get back to the hotel and after dinner and we do a couple of hours of social. And so that's the sort of balance we've sought out between that old style travel and the new style.
Would it have been possible to be a successful travel blogger 25 years ago versus today?
um, I don't know. I don't think the technology was there to really make it worthwhile as far as audience is concerned. You know, the internet was new and what value would have been placed on it. And I think that's what travel bloggers have to prove. They have to prove that they add value, that they're doing something that other people aren't doing. And so I don't know whether the
Mm.
audience would have been there or the ability to create communities would have been there. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say.
You said about doing something that no one else is doing, but what about doing something in a different way than what other people are doing it?
Oh, for sure. Just
Mm.
I think it's finding the gaps that people want filled, and it's like anything. Like I still write um, articles that I want to write that may not fill a gap, but that I enjoy writing. Um, I treat them differently. I don't expect them to add, traffic to my website. Um, but I still do it because I enjoy doing it. So I don't think you should get,
Mm.
whilst you have to be business minded, if you just love writing, there's lots of other avenues you can use. I'm thinking of writing a book to sell on Amazon instead of having it on my blog because of that, because it means I could write for writing's sake rather than for blogging's sake.
Do you think your corporate experiences helped significantly in becoming a travel blogger?
That's an interesting one. I think in parts it has. It has given me a better handle on the commercial side of things, maybe, and certainly maybe on the work ethic of you work really hard as a travel blogger. Like there's always something to do. My husband often says to me, "Oh, are you just working away again today?" And here's me having this dream of, having lots of time and to spend with him. And I said to him, "There's always something to do." There is never a day that I wake up and think, "Oh, I have nothing to do today." There is always something to do, whether that's retrofitting stuff, whether that's researching, whether that's Google Analytics. There's all sorts of stuff that I could be doing. So did it prepare me? No.
So what?
But it's helped, I think.
So tell me about the natural evolution of what you're doing. Where does it go to? Like, where's it going to be in 5 years from now?
That's really interesting. I've been thinking about that a lot myself, actually, because I've been trying to streamline my own business model. I think in the next 5 years, I will have minimized actually what I'm doing. Because
does that mean less workload when you say
minimize in that I want to spend less time doing it, and that's not because I want to restrict. I'm not going to expand into podcasting or videos or the things that travel bloggers are pushed to do. I'm going to do the things that I do well, and I'm going to do them in a better, more streamlined fashion. Because I really don't want to lose track and sight of the reason why I'm in this position. I'm here because I wanted a better lifestyle with my husband. I wanted a nicer, less 9 to 5 lifestyle. And so if I just spend every waking moment on my blog, that means I'm not having that. So I'm not really living up to what I set out to do. And therefore, even if I grow slower, I'd rather have more time pottering around France and enjoying my life with my husband, and grow slower, but grow in a fashion that is more suitable for my lifestyle. Because it is tempting when you're not working. It's tempting to spend all your waking hours blogging and pushing and getting more numbers, and it's very all-consuming because you are the only person doing it. But I think you have to work smarter, not harder, and it's taken me probably a year to figure that out.
I'm really fascinated by this because if one was to look at the evolution of these YouTubers and how many of them have been burnt out trying to keep up with posting a YouTube video every day, right?
Yeah.
And it's destroyed lives. There's some real train wrecks out there that have occurred because of that.
Yeah.
And I find it really refreshing to hear you, somebody who's being very successful in this space, who's saying, well, I want to take my foot off the gas for a while, and maybe I'll take my foot off the gas long term, to focus on quality. I find that really, really good. It's not even becoming across as being work in any respect, is it? And I think it's important not to lose sight of that, because that's when it starts to go off the rails, right?
Yeah. And I think when you're confronted with this sort of new business, because blogging in the scheme of the world is really quite a young thing, is that you are surrounded by people who perhaps have had a lot of success in earning, this I know people who earn in the six figures, and that's come through an evolution of learning and an evolution of filling a gap where there wasn't something, or doing something better than somebody else. And I don't think everybody has to live to that extreme. So I don't I think for me, the realization was I don't have to earn six figures. What do I need to survive and and to be happy, but have that balance? Because if I could earn six figures if I put my head down and never spoke to my husband. But is that the life that I wanted? Otherwise, I could have just stayed in corporate Edinburgh. You know, it was a nice life there. You know, there's not. You have to think about the reasons why you're doing it, and not do it for the show of it, and not do it for the accolades or anything like that. You know, what are your primary objectives, and that has to fit. Your business plan has to fit with that, because otherwise you're gonna be unhappy. And I've seen so many bloggers come and go. They come in and most people get out within a year because they don't realize how hard it is. There's just hundreds and hundreds of travel blogs or any kind of blogs that come in. They work there until they're nearly dead, and at the end of the year they haven't gotten anywhere because guess what? It can take longer.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, right?
For sure.
I'm interested to know what happened in your social circles and with your work colleagues in Edinburgh when you told them that you were going off to live this different life. How was the reception from your peers about that?
It's a very money-centric environment working in a bank, obviously. So a lot of people wondered how I'd done it. And I was very honest, and I said, well, our house in France cost us £40,000, all of it, all in, and you couldn't even buy a garage in Edinburgh for that amount of money. So when you look at the cost of living, you realise it's different, so you can do it. And also, you know, we prepared for months and months and months and saved like crazy people. I was saving half of my income kind of thing. And there's a dedication to that. So people, there was a mix of awe because they couldn't figure out how somebody on my salary could be doing what I'm doing. But there was a sense of excitement on the other side of it. There was a little bit of jealousy, which I got annoyed at, because I was like, you don't have any idea how hard I'm going to have to work to maintain this lifestyle. So it's not easy peasy. I just get to sit on Tropical Islands on my laptop.
Did you find that people were starting to live vicariously through you after you made the decision?
Oh, for sure. And that's maybe what keeps me blogging, is I'm not here to tell you to pack up your nice lifestyle in a city and come and live in the middle of nowhere and also and travel as your main game. I'm not one of those blogs that's going to, you know, teach you how to do that. But I do want to inspire people to take what they have and fit travel within that lifestyle. So if you can get away for the weekend, if you can really utilize that 2 weeks they make you take off every year, you know, all of those things that that can make travel part of your life. And I think that really kicked off for me when people realized what I was doing. People looked so longingly at that lifestyle, and I thought, you can have part of that by traveling every weekend or once a month or once every 2 months. You know, you can have that wanderlust. You don't have to give up your job to do it. So that sort of really cemented the focus for me, because I wanted them not to look in awe at what I was doing, but to go, oh, cool, I can do a bit of that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yesterday I had a couple of teachers on the show, and they teach all year, but they have lots of school holidays, and they use that time to go off traveling the world, and they have a blog, and away they go, right? So it's a good mixture. It's not one or the other, is it? It's not. It doesn't have to be black and white.
No, and honestly, for most people, it won't be. And that's okay. And in fact, at some point, I might go back to work and work full time in a corporate environment if I fancy it, if I need a cash injection. I don't think that there's any I don't want there to be romanticism about quitting your job, because it took us 2 years of planning and saving to get to that point, and even when we did do it, it was still scary. So
it's a big commitment. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And
but I do want to tell you though, if you're going to run back to the corporate world, you give me a call and I'll come and buy that £40,000 French house off you, and I'll move my podcast show into the house.
You'll have to deal with tractors outside. Sorry,
I don't care. That's fine. I'll even bring my dog as well, so I can have a dog barking. Look, I wanted to ask you. We're rapidly going to the end of the show, and I've got so much to ask you. But I wanted to ask you, how's the landscape of the travel industry changed since bloggers have come along? Are you finding now that you mentioned before about tourist commissions and all those types of organisations within the travel industry, and let's understand, first of all, that the travel industry is so huge, and it's a big moving machine, and it's constantly changing. But have you seen, since you've been into this, a change in, I guess, direction with marketing and more bloggers being involved with companies now doing all sorts of things within the travel industry, say, versus 10 years ago?
Oh, for sure. And I think finally people are starting to realise the value of bloggers. Not so much as a space for, whilst there is a space for the ability to spread the word and that influencer kind of stuff. I don't like that word, but to spread buzz about a place. But about content creation, there's nothing better than having somebody who is passionate about travel, who has been to your destination, to start, writing you something and putting that on your website. So I think content creation, I've seen a lot more of that coming through as people have realized that they can leverage these writers who are passionate and who might already have content, or you might send them to a place. And I think there's more openness to the variety of things. So whether it be a social takeover or content or content on their own blogs, there's so many facets, and that comes back to what bloggers do. You do everything. So you can license photos off a blogger, you can get them to write content for you, you can get them to write content on their blog, you can get them to do social, you can do takeovers, you can do Twitter chats. There's so much that they can do because they're a jack of all trade. And I think people are finally starting to realize that and actually utilize it.
Now, I'm going to ask you to come back on the show sometime in the future, because there's a whole other show that I want to do with you and talk to you about stuff if you'd like to do that. We've gone through a ton of stuff today, which has been really, really great. But I'd like to know, where are you off to next? Where's your next travel destination?
What day is it? Where are we going?
It's currently Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 23rd of October. Okay. Next up is Bilbao in Spain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because we're about 5 hours drive from Spain, so that's super useful. And Bilbao is apparently really dog friendly, so we're taking a road trip with our dog.
Oh, brilliant.
Down to Bilbao, and we are. It's a lifelong dream, having a master's in museum studies, to go to the Guggenheim in Bilbao.
I was going to say, the first place you'll be going to is the Guggenheim, of course. Yeah.
Literally, yes.
Okay.
Not with the dog, because he has to stay behind. But apparently they don't like dogs in the Guggenheim. Yeah. Terrible.
So when are you off doing that?
That will be the beginning of December.
Okay. So why don't we talk after you come back from that trip?
Sure.
And you can actually give us a bit of a road trip to Spain kind of review. Yeah, that'd be quite cool.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
road
great.
Trips are my jam.
Well, listen, before I let you go, I'd like you to shout out one more vital piece of advice for anybody out there today who's listening, who wants to start a travel blog. You've already given a ton of really good advice and insights to the world of a travel blogger, but is there something else that you might not have mentioned that you could share with the audience today as a bit of a hot tip?
My hot tip would be know yourself and your own voice. Don't try and replicate anybody else's style of writing. Just be you, because the joy of travel blogs is they should have a personal voice. If you didn't have that personal voice, you could just look on the tourism website, have a voice and be comfortable with who you are and how you write.
Yeah.
And try not to change that too much.
Fantastic. I'm going to leave it at that. Hannah Henderson via London and New Zealand and now the rest of the world. Thank you very much for being on the Global Travel Channel podcast show. It's been an absolute treat for me and a lot of fun for the audience, and can't wait to have you back on the show again in the not too distant future.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Terrific. There we are. That was Hannah Henderson talking to us from the beautiful countryside in France today, even though with that strong Kiwi accent. Hannah provided lots of fantastic tips for anybody out there who wants to become a travel writer, travel blogger, and along with my other guests this week have all provided some wonderful insights as to their respective travel writing journeys and how to get into this game. So I hope you found that useful, that series, and enjoyed listening to the journeys of each of my guests. If you're looking for more episodes from the Global Travel Channel podcast series, please head over to our website at www.globaltravelchannel.com. There you can find all of our previous episodes, and if you want to download them, simply go over to Apple iTunes under Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and a host of other destinations, which are all listed on our website where you can download our podcast from. If you want to share our podcast with your family, friends, or work colleagues, please do so. We're trying to grow our global travel community as much as we possibly can, so that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, that's it for this particular episode. My name is Mark Philpott, and until next time, I wish you all bon voyage.